As the believers studied the sanctuary message, they followed the process and they went from the holy to the most holy place, and there they saw the Ark of the Covenant. The furniture inside the most holy place and the various meanings to it is expounded on in this chapter, going through and outlining chapters 13 and 14 of Revelation, explaining key end-time prophecies. As they went into the most holy place and saw the Ark of the Covenant, they saw the tables of stone, and in the tables of stone they saw the law of God, which forms the central piece to the great controversy between good and evil. Is there a law? Is it eternal? Is it valid? And what role does it play today? In Revelation 14, we see a progression with the three angels' message. In verse 7, it starts out with the hour of judgment having come, and we work through to verse 12, where we see the call to keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Also in verse 7, we see a call to fear God. And the wisest man who ever lived, King Solomon, said in Ecclesiastes 12 and verse 13, to fear God and keep his commandments. And thus, even though the law of God is not mentioned explicitly, the phrase fear God is often connected with the law of God. Verse 7 closes out with an almost verbatim quotation of the fourth commandment, the Sabbath, which Ezekiel 20 verse 20 tells us is the sign between God and his people. The law of God and the Sabbath thus play a pivotal role in eschatological events, and the Sabbath teaches us that the basis of all true worship is that God is our creator. In Exodus, the fourth commandment says, "For in 6 days the Lord made it all." In order to keep this reality ever before us, God created the Sabbath, a weekly reminder that God loves us, He made us, and He wants to redeem us. In Revelation chapter 14, we see a contrast between those in verse 7 and 12 who keep the Sabbath and worship God, and those in verse 9, 10, and 11 who worship the beast, his image, and receive his mark. In order to understand the mark of the beast properly, a careful study of Revelation 13 is required, and we see the chapter divided into two parts, the first beast and the second beast. In Bible prophecy, a beast represents a kingdom as outlined in Daniel 7 verse 17 and verse 24. So we have two kingdoms or nations and the key interactions between them. The first beast is represented by papal Rome, and as this power received a deadly wound in 1798 as the Pope was taken prisoner and Rome was stripped of its civil power, we see the second beast or nation rising. When you look at all the identifying marks in Revelation 13, it's clear that only one nation can fulfill all of these characteristics, and that is the United States of America. It was a young nation in 1798, symbolized by the lamb-like horns, as a lamb is a young animal. It would have two horns, two significant features, and republicanism and Protestantism would form two key tenets of this nation. A state with no king and a church with no pope. In fact, there would never be a national church of America. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The chapter then goes on to explain it will be those who dwell in this nation who make an image to the beast. Whilst we do not have time to go into detail as to what the image of the beast is, read the chapter for more information. Essentially, it's a reflection of the first beast or nation. The second nation would reflect the first nation in a key characteristic as to how church and state interact with each other. The chapter then goes on to talk about what the mark of the beast is, how God's law has been attempted to be changed, how these changes have caught on, but ultimately how it's impossible to change the law of God. As this chapter ends, it reminds us that there will be two groups of people in the end. those who worship the beast and those who keep the commandments of God. The two groups stand in contrast with each other. May we never obey man when it stands in conflict with what God requires of us. And remember what the book of Acts says, that it's better to obey God rather than man.